Welcome back to Pittsburgh Home Garden. It's 90 degrees. Oh my goodness, this heat. I'm sure you've been dealing with it as well. It's terrible. So I figured it would be a good time to talk about one of the most heat-sensitive group of crops that people grow in their backyards, and I'm talking about brassicas. But before we talk about the current status of the brassica bed, let me show you how we got here. I haven't been in the garden in a couple days. Been kind of just letting nature do its thing, and it's been doing because of all of my brassicas. That little bed that I put in has overgrown, and it's super sexy. And honestly, it's way too big for this insect netting now. The netting is actually laying down directly on the leaves, and I'm actually starting to see a bit of damage just because the insects that I'm trying to block are actually able to just like land on the leaf now. So I have to build this kind of structure up and place the netting around and just kind of raise this up because my kale is getting very tall, and I want it to be as tall as possible before the eventual fall comes. Also, one of the big issues with this side of the garden, as you can see behind me, is a lot of overgrown grass, which is actually terrible for what I'm trying to do over here, because although this insect netting is doing a great job, I'm actually allowing a place for all the insects to live by letting all this grass get so high and so close around the beds. I'm gonna have to do something, especially in between the beds. I think I'm gonna have to lay down some plastic or some heavy weed barrier if I could get it for fairly cheap, because this grass is way too close to the beds and it's destroying the whole purpose of last summer essentially. But yeah, so I'm gonna mow this down and then we'll take off this cover and I'll show you how sexy these babies really are.
Oh, Pittsburgh soil, where melodies find roots, in my garden of jazz, wearing dandy boots. Nature's got the beat.
Oh, do you remember that bed? This thing is so full of life. Oh my goodness. I just like want to bathe in it, but I can't. I'm actually very scared to even leave this netting off for too long because it is in the middle of the day, the bugs are out, and I don't want anything setting larvae on my delicious brassicas. So I have some bok choy back here that has gone to seed as predicted. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. I'm going to harvest a bit of the spinach because that has also gone to seed. I definitely want to do like a small harvest and do a little bit of weeding because there are some weeds definitely in between the plants that I'm starting to see the closer I get to the soil. Beautiful. This is probably the best kale I've ever grown. This year has been one for kale. Even the lower leaves are still very nice. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to go ahead and do some weeding, and then we are going to rebuild the structure so I can put the netting on a bit higher. Here in real life, it's roughly been 2 to 3 weeks, and I haven't really been in the bed since the heat wave started. I've made sure to come out here and water the garden, especially the brassicas. I'm not watering until about 8:30, 9 o'clock now, just so the water has enough time to like really steep in. Now that I'm really close up, I'm seeing some leaf damage. So I do have some bugs, and I actually may have introduced some bugs trying to transplant from the greenhouse. This may be my fault, but let's get to the reveal. Oh man, I am so mad at myself. Jeez Louise. So immediately I'm gonna take this out and show you. And so this was a kale plant from the greenhouse. It actually was the first kale plant that was like planted inside the greenhouse. Sadly, it is now time for me to move the very first greenhouse kale Because the animal pressure is getting to it, and it needs to be under the good old shade cloth, along with the other beautiful pieces of kale. So for one last time, let's just take a look at this beaut. So I decided to move this and another kale plant inside this bed, and honestly, that was probably a terrible idea. Because before the introduction of these plants, all of this was super sexy and like no problems at all, as you've seen in the last little clip. But now, looking at my brassicas, where these plants are close to, check this out. So immediately, I'm pulling these plants. Oh, I'm so mad at myself. But not all is lost. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the most infected leaves. Hopefully, most of the bugs are on these leaves. Oh, get them out of the bed as soon as possible. Now, of course, summertime is just like very rough to grow brassicas in general, just because this is where all the pests, they're alive, they're flying around, they're laying eggs everywhere. It's hard. The insect netting certainly has been doing its job, but not when the plant daddy introduces something underneath the net. But since I'm in here, I'm looking around and I want to clean up the bed. I want to get more airflow. Like I said, it's 90 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and do a bit of harvesting. So you see the bok choy, of course, has gone to flower. What's new with that? I like to take off the tops because I am not saving these for seed. At least not yet. I think maybe my last little batch of bok choy for the summertime I'll probably save. But right now they just go to compost. And when harvesting, I like to come from the branch and kind of take the chunks as they are. Like right here is a nice little bit of bok choy. I eat the stem and everything. I like to cook everything down. It's fairly nice. I don't mind it, especially in a good stir fry, which I have been eating a lot, trying not to turn on the oven. I have some good old beet tops that are doing very well. I don't think animals like beet tops. They always seem to have the least amount of damage on them, at least the last couple seasons. I don't know if I've just been getting lucky, but this is gonna make for very, very good eating tonight. I love being able to be in my bed. to live with the plant. So as you can see, my Brussels sprouts are going crazy. This is the first time I've ever grown Brussels sprouts. So I want to make sure that they continue to do well. I'm gonna go ahead and clear up some space. You really just want really proper airflow, especially for these plants that struggle in heat. So proper amount of weeding, watering, and harvesting, honestly, as you should be harvesting. And of course, I'm coming in on this beautiful, beautiful dinosaur kale. I am so happy with this. Oh man, but I'm gonna go ahead, do a nice harvest because I need to anyway. And also, I'm clearing out all the bottom leaves specifically because these are your oldest leaves. They're closest to the ground, and they're certainly, a lot more accessible to all of the insects, except for the flying ones, I suppose. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish harvesting the rest of these kale, show you a bit of the spinach, and then we're gonna move on to what I believe is the most important part of, a Heatwave Brassica care. So right here, I have some baby bib lettuce that I went ahead and just kind of threw seeds all over, just to see what would happen. These are the only ones that kind of grew in a cluster, but with a much more delicate hand, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna harvest all the lower leaves, because like I said, we are going to move on to the most important part of taking care of your brassicas during the summertime. And it's not just watering, because you don't want them to just survive. You want these babies to thrive. You know what I'm saying? So there's going to be a good amount of fertilization. And the way I fertilize mine, it's pretty stinky. Some time has passed since the little harvest. The sun is going down, the bugs are out, and apparently I'm a goddamn buffet. So I'm going to hurry up and do this. So before you lay any type of fertilization for your brassicas or for any plants during the summertime, you really want to make sure that you water down the soil first. You don't want your nutrients just sitting right on top of the soil. It's much more likely to just kind of dry out and never make it down to the roots where, you actually really want them. So here at the Pittsburgh Home Garden, I am lucky enough to actually use very natural fertilizer, which comes from my turtles. Meet Kuna and Lillian. They are the house turtles. They're about to get a new home soon. I think they're pretty excited. But they are dirty, stinky turtles who poop all over the place. So I am able to take all of that good nutrition and use it here in the garden. I've been using it ever since I've lived here, but it works specifically well for the brassicas because, like I said, you want your brassicas to not only survive but to thrive. So I'm going to go ahead and wet down the soil before I get some of that good old turtle poop into the garden. Now that it is 9 o'clock at night, the sun has gone down and your soil is nice and moist, you want to go ahead and take your fertilizer and add it to the base of your plants. For myself, who's using, fish poop, I certainly don't want this splashing up on the leaves that I'm eventually going to eat. So I like to go in and really try to get at the base of the plant, which is also why harvesting those bottom leaves are very important, because this is where you're going to add your nutrients and you don't want anything touching the ground if it doesn't necessarily have to. So I am going to finish this, get inside, get to making my wonderful stir fry for this evening. Please do me a favor and subscribe if you could. And until next time, I'll be here gardening.
Oh, Pittsburgh soil, where melodies find roots in my garden of jazz.